Oh, now that we have formed that circle of safety, of nurturing here in this space, with that enlivening and holding power of the music, thank you so much for that. I'm gonna shake things up a little bit. So if you wanna shake a little bit, just let's see how open we can be to a little bit of restlessness, a little bit of disturbance of our assumptions. It's a good space to start that from. I love that you all give me the chance to share messages with you at the joints of the year, the transitional times in nature at solstices and equinoxes, and cross-quarter days even has been a theme with Imbolc. I've realized that I keep coming back here right at these times. And you know, these are also the articulating focal points of human culture, so it's a very meaningful. Sorry, I just feel like maybe I'm a little bit far from the mic. Is it okay? Does it sound okay? It's a very meaningful time to be sharing. It's an honor for me. And yesterday was, as you know, the summer solstice, the time when we are tilted closest to the sun. So we celebrate the light. We celebrate the vibrant, verdant lusciousness of summer in full bloom. We let fruits ripen and juices flow in the blazing sun. We feel the heat. It is getting hot up in here, right? In the heat, we also get restless for change. We let our wild side out. Revolutions and rebellions bloom. The summer of love, the summer of riots, the summer of racial reckoning. These have all happened in less than the past century. Long days, perhaps, spacious outdoor possibilities, and simmering heat probably all move us to disrupt the status quo. When I sat down to consider what I would say about the summer solstice when I was going to preach for you on this day, I realized I had to call in the one who turns up the heat. The one I'm speaking of is Trickster. He is a fiery force with many names: holy fool, jester, deceiver, disruptor. Interestingly, in diverse cultures around the world, Trickster is almost always a he. So there's a whole gender discussion we could have there, but I'll just set that aside for now. If you all know me, I've just done a bunch of events around divine feminine, divine masculine. Very interesting to me, but for now, we'll just mention that. So he is coyote in southwestern Native American traditions, and raven once you get further north in the Pacific Northeast. He is Loki in Norse mythology. He takes shape as both Prometheus and Hermes in Greek mythology. He is Ha-Satan, the adversary, in Judeo-Christian mythology, theology, however you want to say it. He is the devil at the crossroads in old blues songs. Trickster is not a bad guy. He's also not a good guy. He is simply the embodiment of change. He shows up when any order gets too rigid, serious, or self-righteous. He points out the hypocrisy by playing in the dirt and slinging the mud. A healthy culture makes space for him and feeds him. But when the established order does not ritualize and integrate his disruption, he might come and tear the whole thing down or put himself on the throne. Before I tell tales of Trickster, to begin unraveling why he is so relevant to this heated moment in history, I have to give credit to Joshua Schrei of The Emerald, a podcast about currents and trends, Through a mythic lens, much of what I'm sharing about Trickster today is pulled directly from his podcast episode called Trickster Jumps Sides. Highly recommend it. And in turn, he gives a lot of credit drawing from the book Trickster Makes the World by Lewis Hyde. So, let's start in the Pacific Northwest. Raven went to visit Petrel one day because he was thirsty, and Petrel guarded a fresh water spring that he didn't share with anyone. Petrel didn't trust Raven. He knew he was tricky, so he slept at the gate to his spring. But while he was sleeping, Raven took a bunch of dog crap and smeared it all over Petrel's rear end. And then he woke Petrel up and said, "Brother, you shat all over yourself." So Petrel jumped up and hurried off to bathe, while Raven greedily drank up every last drop of the spring. And as Raven flew away, he was so engorged with water that it fell from his beak and became all the streams and riverways where the salmon flow, bringing food and water to the people. Across the world in Japan, Amaterasu, the sun goddess, orchestrated a solemn sacred festival of first fruits at the time of the rice harvest. Just when everything is in beautiful order, her little brother shows up. I have a little brother. Susanu, the storm god, comes and vandalizes the rice fields, moving the markers between the fields so no one knows whose is whose, breaking down the barriers and flooding them, and finally goes into the hallowed hall of her banquet and defecates all over it. Amaterasu is so upset that she retreats into a cave and plunges the world into darkness for months. This, of course, sets in motion the turning of the seasons. Trickster loves stealing the wondrous power to make fire. Prometheus the Titan steals fires from the gods, in one account by throwing a pear into their courtyard with a note reading, "For the most beautiful goddess of all." While the goddesses fight tooth and nail over it, the gods are so busy enjoying this spectacle that no one notices that Prometheus sneaks into their forge and steals a spark and takes it to Earth to share it with the humans. Now, back in North America, many traditions have coyote stealing fire as well from the fire beings to bring it back to humans so they can cook and warm themselves, but he gets a permanently singed white tail tip in the process. And then there is that foundational trickster of Western civilization, a snake, who convinced a bored woman in a paradisical garden to eat some forbidden fruit. Upon this one story, so many rigid orders were built to promote gender hierarchy and human depravity as the core of our beings that it's hard to hear it as the comical, irreverent story of disruption and renewal that I think it really is. The serpent was more intelligent than any of the other animals God had made, the story begins. And then it recounts this absurd exchange he has with the woman, first asking her if God really told them not to eat any fruit from the trees in the garden. And she says, "No, of course not. We can eat anything except for that one tree in the middle. If we touch it, we'll die." And he says, "You will not certainly die. God knows that when you eat it, your eyes will be open and you will be like God, knowing good from evil." Until then, the woman and the man had it made, with all these docile beasts and good fruit to eat in the garden. But where's the fun, the adventure, the drama in that story? So the woman saw that the fruit was delicious looking, and she was very curious about having wisdom. So she ate some, and then she gave some to the man. And then both of them realized for the first time, holy crap, we're naked. Now, Trickster loves crude innuendo, so I'm pretty sure that the point here is that they also realized some other things about the functions of those body parts that they later felt compelled to cover with fig leaves. After this, they heard God taking his refreshing evening stroll in the garden, and they hid. A confrontation ensues. God quickly figures out that they ate from the forbidden fruit tree, and the man blames the woman, and the woman blames the snake. God punishes everyone with the toilsome work of creating culture. Bearing children, forming imperfect partnerships, cultivating food, and getting pretty dusty and dirty in the process. They're thrown out of paradise, and the entrance is guarded with fire. Interesting. Trickster has set the whole human endeavor into motion. So you may have noticed some common themes here. Trickster's currency is dirt and excrement, but he also brings the alchemical fire that creates food for our bellies and invents culture and renews it. In many places today, Trickster is an integral part of sacred traditions. In Catholic cultures of Latin America, the revelry of Carnaval is a necessary counterpart to the solemnity of Lent. It's a time when poor people dress up as elites and mock the rich, when men dress up as women, and all the norms are suspended. In some parts of Mexico, there are clowns who even take part in the solemn Lenten processionals with the crucifix. And sometimes they protect the crucifix, and that's what they're there for, but then other times they pretend to defecate on it, and they joke about sleeping with the spectators' wives. In Hopi ceremonies, clowns walk into the ritual space backwards. Reversal is a big theme for Trickster. And they knock people over and they mock the ritual proceedings. And they are not rebels or outcasts. They too are sacred. So tracing Trickster's muddy tracks reveals an inextricable relationship between trickery, mischievousness, irreverence, mockery, disruption, and the process of creating and renewing the world. Trickster's actions are all rooted in one simple motivation. He is hungry. He wants to eat. Isn't that what always created culture? The burning drive to start fire, cook food, and seek more fuel for our bellies, minds, and hearts. But here's the catch. Trickster is not always a generative, constructive force. He's Trickster. He's unpredictable. And if you don't make room for him regularly, if you don't welcome him as an honored guest and feed him, he will show up anyway, and he will be pissed. He will grab at anything he can in destructive and vengeful ways. What we are seeing play out in our world right now and in the years leading up to it is a tsunami wave of Trickster energy in cultures and places and systems that maybe have not ritualized a space for him. They have not ritualized their own disruption and renewal. Last year, almost every major election around the globe voted out the incumbent party. Left went right, right went left. There is no one particular ideology that is capturing imaginations right now. It is just the will of the people to overturn whatever the established order is. That is what Trickster is all about. He holds no allegiances. He is neither conservative nor liberal, neither religious nor atheist, nor even spiritual but not religious. Yeah, he comes for you too. He is neither fascist nor socialist nor even anarchist. So that is why Joshua Schrey's podcast episode is called Trickster Jumps Sides. Trickster tips any sacred cow that he finds. He mocks and ridicules any group that is too self-righteous or narrow in its vision. It's exhilarating and empowering when Trickster is on your side, when he is mocking the gods that you think need to be toppled. But how much humor and grace will you have when he comes after your own gods? It's a good question for all of us. When he comes to topple the order that you stand for, and he certainly will, Trickster Jumps Sides, the episode of the podcast, was recorded in 2021, soon after the January 6th riot at the Capitol. Schrei noted how disorienting the event was for progressives who have long claimed the mantle of culture disruptors. The 1960s particularly initiated an awakening of consciousness in the US, largely thanks to hallucinogenic substances that influenced everything from quantum physics to the invention of the internet to LGBTQ rights. It's worth noting, of course, that indigenous cultures the world over have used these same hallucinogenic substances for millennia to ritualize disruption and renewal. And I even have to wonder about that fruit in the Garden of Eden. In any case, the recent tidal wave of cultural change has mostly been the purview of the left in this country. But on January 6th, the protesters, rebels, and disruptors of the established order were conservatives. Now, a white guy in a ceremonial bear headdress and face paint claiming to be a QAnon shaman is the face of revolutionary change. Now they're flying the Revolutionary War flag with a rattlesnake declaring, "Don't tread on me." Now the cunning trickster snake is back, and he's trying to find a way to offend everyone. 4 years later, the January 6th protesters finally won. The highest office in the land was once again captured by a man who many of his detractors call a clown. And whether or not you agree with that label, it is a very interesting choice of words, considering how little space we have made for trickster in our solemn, self-righteous, orderly, modern democracy. Meanwhile, the current administration is dismantling all kinds of programs and agencies, from diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives to the National Park Service, and it's going rogue to bomb Iran. Trickster is turning up the heat. It remains to be seen whether or not these disruptions could end up being a vehicle for healthy cultural renewal. And in most cases, I myself do sincerely doubt it. As I mentioned before, when cultural customs do not give trickster a seat at the table, when the established order fails to ritualize his role of disruption and renewal, he can show up in truly chaotic, destructive ways. He takes vengeance. He gobbles up everyone's share and leaves nothing but excrement behind. Or worse, he burns it all down, not even satisfying his own hunger, and leaves only ash. I began talking today about how much I appreciate having a chance to share a message at the transitional points of the year, like solstices and equinoxes, these articulating times between seasons that are, in fact, when trickster energy can be particularly powerful. And I believe that on a larger scale of evolutionary time, we are also at a transitional juncture. Trickster is turning up the heat, and we might get burned, or we might learn to dance in the flames. Joshua Schrei describes how trickster hangs around at the articulations of the body, both individual and cultural. These are the joints where there is movement, where change is possible. So he likes the festivals of spring and harvest and light and dark. He lingers at the crossroads. He fights dirty by going for the knees. If we are too open and flexible at the joints, we risk letting him run the show and run us all into the ground. But if we are too stiff and we don't make space for him at all, then we rot in our rigidity. We must have a strong core so that we can absorb and integrate trickster's disruption at the joints into the established order. Now, there is only so much I think we can do to integrate this disruptive energy of Trickster in a culture that has no agreed upon way to ritualize it, especially considering how much havoc Trickster is wreaking right now in our culture. But I do believe that we as individuals and as local collectives have great power to serve the common good simply by making space for Trickster in our own lives and our own ways of being together. Maybe this can be as simple as laughing at ourselves more often, being able to take a joke, or to poke a bit of fun at our own holy paradigms and sacred cows. Maybe this can lead us to suspend our certainty about some things, to question if we are really so holy and righteous in our perspectives and identities as we had assumed. We can learn to play in the dirt. It wouldn't hurt to make a few jokes referencing excrement or genitalia. For me, maybe it's having my sacred morning ritual with a willow tree in my backyard interrupted by looking down and realizing that during the night, some animal took a big runny dump right at the foot of the tree. And it's remembering that this too is communion with nature. Nature is not always pretty, friendly, or on our side. Maybe in spiritual communities like this one, it's having a yearly or quarterly service to make fun of all our spiritual aspirations and lofty ideals. Or at least planting a heckler or a holy clown in the crowd for the most solemn and sacred rituals. Or you could just plant my son Lucio, who now when I sing some of my dance chants for the healing feast, I'll be singing like, we are blessed, blessed, blessed. He's like, we're not blessed, we will rest. We will not rest. He does it all the time. He's a great trickster. It would also be wise to start looking around more often and considering who is hungry in our society, in every sense that one can be hungry. We can ask ourselves who is not being fed by the established orders or paradigms, including the paradigms that I cherish. Who is not even getting a seat at the table? And how can we include them in our meals? Even if it's messy, even if they come back for seconds or thirds, or double dip in the guacamole, or swipe gobs of the carefully sculpted frosting on the cake to lick off of their fingers. Many, many people are hungry right now for complex reasons, far beyond the scope of this talk. But what I can say is that it is most certainly at its root a spiritual or soul level hunger, even when it is also accompanied by physical lack or malnourishment. And I am, like so many others, in turn scandalized, disheartened, and frightened by the daily disruptions that we are witnessing that rattle and harm many sacred things, including living beings and humans. But I also can't help but wonder if the only way we can renew and transform our current order at this point is if we all feel the heat. Someone is hungry. Someone is stoking a raging fire. What if we found a way to embrace his disruptions? What if we found a way to harness his fire so that we can cook the feast? What if we started setting a table where everyone from every side can feel welcome to come and eat?